In the opening credits of SNL, you can see Phil Hartman sitting in a booth with a blonde-haired woman. You'd never know it's his wife Bryn because we never see her face. Legend has it her earrings are swinging in the shot because she kept trying to turn her head to be on camera. The director kept telling her to look away. This was Phil's photo shoot, not hers. The only usable take was the shot with her swinging earrings. 4 years later, she'd shoot Phil dead. Welcome to True Crime Recaps. I'm Chris. Every week, Amy and I are here bringing you all the crime in half the time. If that sounds good, remember to please hit that subscribe button and the bell so you never miss a recap. Now, I've got a question for you. Have you ever noticed how the allure of Hollywood has a way of changing people? Fledglings enter with big dreams and good intentions only to be swept up by the latest tabloid scandal. Far too many become slaves to money, drugs, sex, and fame. But not Phil Hartman. Phil was a diamond in the rough. He was America's beloved everyman from 1986 to 1998. Even if that was before your time, you probably at least know his voice from The Simpsons. He was the guy behind the Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure characters. Or you might remember his Frank Sinatra and Bill Clinton impressions on Saturday Night Live.
Well, I just want to mingle with the American people, talk with some real folks, maybe get a Diet Coke or something.
All right, fine. But please, don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
Jim, let me tell you something. There's going to be a whole bunch of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton. Fast food is the least of our worries, okay, buddy?
Oh, my God, it's Bill Clinton!
Oh, my God. Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Some say his most iconic character was Bill McNeil, a pompous anchor on the NBC comedy News Radio. Phil teetered on the edge of overburdening fame. He'd always star along someone else like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Jingle All the Way or Michael J. Fox in Greedy. Maybe that's what kept Phil from going off the deep end. Still, it wasn't enough to save his life. On the morning of May 28, 1998, millions of Americans flipped between stations to see if the story was true. Phil Hartman was dead, gunned down by his wife Bryn while he slept. We watched Phil's 6-year-old daughter clinging to a police officer's neck as he carried her from their modest home in Encino, California. We learned that his 9-year-old son had heard the gunshots but thought his parents were slamming doors as they argued. From the outside, Phil and Bryn's marriage seemed strong. A bartender at their favorite restaurant said they always looked happy. They were always holding hands, laughing, and having a good time. Behind the scenes, their marriage was a speeding train on the verge of derailment. Phil and Bryn met on a blind date in 1986. By then, Phil had already made a name for himself in Hollywood. He worked with the late Paul Reubens to create the infamous Pee Wee Herman. They developed the Pee Wee Herman Show and co-wrote the screenplay for Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Phil was on the verge of quitting Hollywood before the film's success revitalized his career. He took some minor roles and got into voice acting in the mid-80s. Meanwhile, Bryn was struggling to kickstart her own Hollywood journey. She was born Vicky Omdahl in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. A lifelong friend said she changed her name a lot while trying to find herself. She went from Vicky to Vicky Joe to Bryndon and finally Bryn. She dreamed of being a famous actress, but was working as a Catalina swimsuit model when she met her future husband. By then, Phil had already been married and divorced twice. His longest relationship hardly lasted 3 years. A friend of the couple said Phil had met his dream girl when he and Bryn got together. They got married in 1987 and had 2 children. But one of her close friends says Bryn felt intimidated by Phil. He'd just been added to the Saturday Night Live cast, co-starring in skits with some of the biggest names on television. They nicknamed him Glue because Phil held the show together. SNL creator Lorne Michaels said Phil gave to everybody and demanded very little. Phil was low maintenance compared to other celebrities he'd worked with. He kept things low-key, which served him well in Hollywood, but not in his personal life. His ex-wives remember him being passive and withdrawn. When they'd protest, he'd say they were getting in the way of his career. That's who he was. That's how it was going to be. Bryn was the opposite. She wanted to be a star but could never land the right gig. She felt like she was living in Phil's shadow. He was on his way up. She was home with the kids. Insecurity drove Bryn to undergo several cosmetic surgeries. A plastic surgeon who worked on her said Bryn was very insecure. She wanted to be the perfect wife of a Hollywood star. Allegedly, some of the surgery was Phil's idea. He wanted her chin to be more square, according to their former nanny. While Phil avoided Hollywood's vices, Bryn fell into their snare. She struggled with alcohol abuse and drug addiction. Her drug of choice, cocaine. In the months leading up to Phil's murder, Bryn had been in and out of rehab. She was given Zoloft, which can trigger violent outbursts when mixed with drugs and alcohol. Her friends claim Bryn started drinking and using cocaine again in the days before Phil's murder. Her erratic behavior and drug use were allegedly so bad it forced her housekeeper to quit 10 days before the shooting. Friends say Bryn wanted a divorce, but Phil wouldn't give her one. Others claim it was Phil who wanted out. Most agree it wasn't a happy household. Bryn was also the jealous type. After his son was born, Phil got a congratulations letter from his ex-wife Lisa. She said Bryn wrote back with 4 pages of the most hideous hate you could imagine. Stuff like, "Don't ever effing get near me or my family or I will hurt you. I never want to hear from you. Never ever ever come near us or you will really be sorry." When a freaked out Lisa brought it up to Phil, he told her, "You should have seen the letter she wanted to send." Phil also had a close relationship with Jan Hooks, one of his SNL co-stars. Bryn joked about them being married on some other level. That's because they often played husband and wife on SNL. Bill and Hillary Clinton, Ronald and Nancy Reagan, and Jim and Tammy Baker. It turns out, Bryn didn't think it was very funny. When police searched the house, they found threatening letters addressed to Jan that Bryn had never sent. On the night of May 27, 1998, Bryn met up with a friend at Buca di Beppo, an Italian bistro in Encino, California. She was in good spirits. She seemed content. Bryn nursed 2 cosmopolitans before the friends went their separate ways. They made plans to see each other the following weekend. From there, Bryn went to her longtime friend Ron Douglas's house. She showed up around 10:15. The 2 of them had a few beers while Bryn complained about her husband. She left for home around 12:45 a.m. Bryn and Phil launched into a heated argument when she got home. It's unclear who started the fight or who ended it. According to friends, whenever Bryn got amped up, Phil would just go to sleep. When he woke up in the morning, everything would always be okay. Phil never woke up again. Around 2 a.m., Bryn grabs Phil's .38 caliber revolver from his gun safe. She came into the bedroom, pressed it against his forehead, and pulled the trigger. She fires twice more, once into Phil's face and again into his chest. About an hour or so after the shooting, Bryn made an eerie phone call to her friend Ron. She told him Phil wasn't home. She said he left a note saying, "I'm going out for the night. I'll be back. Phil. Love you." She told Ron she didn't want to be alone, but he told her not to come over and leave the kids in the house alone. "Just take an aspirin, drink some milk, and go to sleep," Ron told her. But less than 30 minutes later, she's banging on his front door in her pajamas and socks. She tells him, "I killed Phil. I don't know why." But she's obviously drunk and he doesn't believe her. He's trying to sober her up with hot tea when the gun falls out of Bryn's bag. Ron told police he put the gun in a plastic shopping bag and put it in the trunk of his car. Ron followed Bryn home around 6:20 a.m. He follows her to the bedroom where he sees Phil's lifeless body. He dials 911. Meanwhile, Bryn locks herself in the bedroom with her dead husband. At 6:21 a.m., Bryn makes a phone call to her sister's office in Wisconsin. She's hysterical. She says, "Phil is dead and tell the children I love them." Meanwhile, her sister is trying to get a handle on where the kids are, but before she can get the whole story, Bryn says, "I've got to go," and hangs up the phone. At 6:32, she gets a call from the police. They ask her if someone's been shot and how many people are in the house. All Bryn will say is yes and "help me." Meanwhile, Ron is stuck inside the Hartman house. Bryn locked the front door deadbolt behind them and it won't open without the key, which she's got with her in the bedroom. So as panicked friends and police start to arrive, Ron is frantically trying to get out of the house. Finally, in desperation, he wakes up the Hartman's 9-year-old son, who finds the back door key, and they both leave. But there's still a 6-year-old sleeping inside, and no one can say for sure what Bryn will do. As the cops swarm the house, they yell out Bryn's name. She's on the phone with her sister again, telling her to take care of the kids. Then a single gunshot echoes through the neighborhood. Bryn crawled into bed with Phil and shot herself once in the head. Police forced their way into the room and find her body next to Phil's. A toxicology report showed Bryn's blood alcohol level was 0.12%. They also found traces of cocaine and therapeutic levels of Zoloft. According to the coroner, the cocaine and alcohol likely intensified each other's effects. As for the Zoloft, in his words, it's kind of a wild card. In 1999, Bryn's brother filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Pfizer, the maker of Zoloft. According to court papers, their child psychiatrist had given Bryn samples of Zoloft 2 months before the murder-suicide. The lawsuit claims the doctor never performed a physical on Bryn or noted her medical history. Pfizer released a statement saying there's no scientific or medical evidence that Zoloft causes violent or suicidal behavior. They settled for $100,000 without admitting wrongdoing. Bryn's sister and brother-in-law took the Hartman kids home to Wisconsin with them. Phil's estate, valued at about $1.23 million, was to be inherited over several years after they turned 25. Per his wishes, Phil was cremated and his ashes were scattered in Emerald Bay off Santa Catalina Island, where the family loved to vacation. In August 2014, Phil received a posthumous star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2015, Rolling Stone ranked him as the 7th best cast member in SNL history, behind names like Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy, and John Belushi. The allure of Hollywood has a way of changing people. It always wins, and it always finds a way. And that's your recap.
Thanks for hanging out with us today.
If you like getting all the crime in half the time, go ahead and tap that subscribe button and the bell so you never miss a story.
We're here Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, but don't go away. Catch up on more recaps right here, right now.
Until next time, take care.